the next time you go fight with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or with your partner, try this one technique. Now, this may backfire, but when you actually try it, just go talk to your partner, your girlfriend, just talk to them like, look, the next time we fight, I'm going to set up a camera and film us fighting, film us arguing, and actually go set up a camera and ask their consent first, obviously, of course. Go set up a camera and film both of you fighting, like both of you arguing, and then come back, take the camera and watch the clip together and kind of notice, kind of notice how you guys are behaving at that given moment. And it kind of freaks you out because you kind of notice that this animalistic nature comes out and you feel like some demon has been possessed, or you were being possessed by a demon. This demonic force has kind of possessed you, and you're acting, feeling, and behaving in that way, which caused you to say all these things which either of you can never take back. Now, when you go watch that clip, right, the clip of you guys fighting, sit together and take down notes. You'll feel like a demonic force has taken over you. And this is what I call pendulum swings. Now, I made an entire video talking about how you get consumed by pendulum swings. I'll link it down in the description below and in the pop-up card above. So what I'm trying to tell you is, in long story short, when you go to the club or any sports game, one person starts getting angry and suddenly you'll see this bar fight rise. Suddenly you'll see so many people start beating each other up. So many people start hitting each other. And you're like, what the hell just happened? These people are being consumed by pendulum swings. Now, this concept is being explained in the book Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zealand. I highly recommend you to go read that book. So when you guys are fighting, this is very common in very intimate relationships, all right? It happens in our close friend circles. It happens when we are very close with our family members, and especially with your partner, with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife. Because this is when the more interconnected you are, the higher the chances that you guys will get consumed by this demonic force and start saying things, hurting each other. That's what makes the toxic bond, the toxic relationship. This is what it's built upon. It's like both of you guys are hurting each other, and kind of at that moment you don't really know. It's pretty unconscious, and this is how a normal relationship kind of starts deviating or turning into a toxic relationship. It's because you guys have several of these fights. It goes again and again and again, and the next time you fight, you kind of connect the previous fight. It's like the next fight is a sequel for the previous fight. It's like part 2, then the part 3, then the part 4. It just keeps going on and on and on. It starts continuing over a long period of time, and it gets compounded. It's the snowball effect that happens. The snowball gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you have this one fight that turns you from a normal couple to a toxic couple. Hands are thrown, you start beating each other up, and it's getting to this weird Amber Heard situation. All of this has been built upon that initial stage. The initial stage where you kind of failed to realize what is actually going on. Why are you guys saying these words? Why am I saying these words? Why am I getting provoked? Why can't we handle this situation like in a much more logical way? So when you look at the clip, right, when you kind of film you both of you fighting each other and literally saying things, all these mean stuff, you look at the clip, it kind of displaces you from the movie, from the act, and places you in the seat of the audience and gives you this third view, this outer perspective. Like you were acting out there. You were there acting in the play. You're being controlled by some external pendulum swing, some external force. Like most of the times, you guys didn't really argue because you were angry on each other. It were external factors. Some people said something about your relationship. You started comparing your relationship to other relationships. Your external family members would have said something. Some external situations would have triggered or provoked you to go and act a certain way to your partner. And sometimes, obviously, you guys would have relationship issues, but then the way you act, the way you start talking to each other at that given point of time is kind of very, very, very toxic. So only when you film yourself and watch it together, that's when you realize, like, okay, this was messed up. It kind of puts you in this outer perspective. You kind of become the audience. When you become the audience, you kind of get this higher intelligence. Kind of makes you much more, patient. Makes you much more, gets you the capacity to actually go and actually deal with the root issue instead of fighting over some surface level problem. And sometimes this may backfire a lot. Now do this only when both of you agree to this. If one person agrees to this and sets up a camera and start filming it and start showing to the other person, look, this is how you acted, it's gonna backfire. It's gonna go way, 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 way worse than you can ever imagine. So make sure both of you agree to this and then film yourself. And it's usually most of the time when you guys are fighting, right? You are in the state of anger, in the state of this, you're being consumed by this emotion of anger. And it's causing you to say things that you don't really mean. And if you notice, after every argument, after every fight, you kind of feel guilty and you kind of feel shameful that you said these things, that this whole situation happened. And nobody is really completely fulfilled and satisfied after having an intense argument or some intense fight. Only psychopaths and energy vampires are kind of convinced. Only these toxic people are kind of convinced that they kind of get this enlightenment, this fulfillment after arguing. Now that is how the toxic relationship works. Both of these guys, both of these people in the toxic relationship, they kind of get high by having these fights. If things are normal, things are happy, things are pretty stable and nice, it kind of doesn't really kind of hit their endorphins. It doesn't really hit their dopamine. Their dopamine receptors are so tuned to abuse, to hate speech, to verbal abuse, physical abuse, and even messed up stuff in your sheets. That's how bad the toxic relationship, the minds of the people who are in toxic relationship are tuned into, because they're so used to this. This is their form of normal. If they don't have a fight, they don't feel good. So if you are in a toxic relationship, kind of instead of putting the blame on the other person, kind of trying to have some self-reflection upon yourself, because you essentially attract things that you resonate with. The partner you attract is a reflection of yourself. If you keep saying that your partner is very toxic and everybody you attract are very toxic, you might be toxic yourself. So the next time you go start an argument, next time you are in an argument, kind of, if you're unable to set up a camera and record, if the other person doesn't allow, of course, you must not do that. At that moment, you kind of put yourself in the audience member. Kind of visualize at that given point of time, displace yourself, detach from your ego. Stop trying to prove your point of view. Stop trying to prove your perspective. Kind of detach from that and kind of see the conversation from a third person view. Only then you kind of get this intelligence, you kind of get this outside perspective and how things are actually going, what is actually happening. Are we simply saying things to prove each other's ego? Are we simply saying things just so we can hurt the other person, see a reaction, and it boosts our ego and self-esteem that, oh yeah, we won? Because in a relationship, when you're arguing, right, and you kind of win the argument, you didn't really win. In a relationship, it's both of you together. If one of you loses, both of you lose. If one of you wins, both of you win. You are in a relationship so that you both of you progress together. It's ride or die. That's essentially is the basis, the building blocks of relationships. So especially when you're arguing, make sure you don't really get consumed by some external force or get the best out of your anger and then start feeling guilty and shameful. Because only now, in the initial stages, you can understand and correct this, or else it's going to go lead into the pathway of toxic relationships. And whatever relationship that you have now in the future, it will kind of resonate to toxicity, and you will never feel normal in a normal relationship ever again. Like whatever relationship you get into kind of emits, radiates that toxic behavior because you kind of crave for the toxic behavior. That toxic behavior kind of turns you on. That's the whole basis of people who operate in toxic relationships. Toxic behavior turns them on. Having fights, having arguments turns them on. It's kind of messed up because their dopamine receptors are so fried. Their reality, their version of their reality is so messed up that they feel good by being and acting and feeling and living by this toxic behavior. They feel good, like literally. When you start punching them, when you start arguing with them, even you kind of feel good. So the only way to prevent yourself from going there is by correcting the stuff or kind of deviating the path, your path. If your path is going towards a toxic relationship, kind of move it, all right? Deviate from there. Understand at that given moment when you're arguing, kind of get this outside perspective. In a relationship, is supposed to be a union. It is not an ego competition. It's not an ego competition of who's right and who's wrong. It's not a competition of who is the bigger person. It's a union. It's a partnership. Treat it like one. If it's an ego competition, it's not a relationship. It's something else. So before you start fighting, before you start even arguing, kind of get a third person view. Now that when you talk to your partner and kind of attach a camera and record you guys fighting, that is very helpful. But if you're unable to do that, okay, it's fine. At least put yourself in this third person view and kind of analyze the situation from there and look at it from at that point of view. And if you kind of realize like you're doing all the inner work, you're being patient, you are analyzing situations from the outside, and you are kind of compromising your ego, and it's happening over and over and over again, and your partner is not really cooperating, then just leave. Just leave from the relationship. It's better late than never, because you'll kind of get used to this behavior and it'll become a pattern for you, and this will go deep in your subconscious mind. And guess what? This is your base standard. Whichever relationship, like even your career relationships, your friendships, kind of resonate at the same frequency, and they will start treating you in a very similar way. It'll be okay. You'll be okay with that. And your entire life progression will be consumed by toxic relationships. And this is when people kind of start complaining like, I'm the good guy. I'm the good person. My partner is very toxic. Like I attract only toxic partners, because you have allowed this toxic behavior to take place. Only if you allow, things will continue. If you choose not to be involved in any toxic relationship, if you choose not to entertain any toxicity at any relationship, you will not face or be in a toxic relationship. That's it. So the next time you're fighting with your girlfriend, boyfriend, your wife, your husband, kind of keep this in mind. Put yourself in this third person view, get this our perspective, and watch how your argument even shifts. Like at that moment, you'll kind of feel like this is a very petty issue to argue. I hope that helps. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.